Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, your home for all things Team Teal. My name is JD Young, one half of the Content Boys. Kyle is playing soccer tonight, so good for him getting that exercise. So we are going to preview the Seattle Kraken, but we want to kind of get more of an in-depth look of what the Kraken are and kind of how their season has been so far and if it's kind of been up to expectations. So we have Marisa Ingemi of the Seattle Times to talk about the Kraken at whole, and then we'll also talk about tonight's game, a game that's kind of important for the Sharks, especially if they want to continue their push to the playoffs, especially with a tough schedule coming up. So we will be previewing the Kraken here in a second.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we are joined by Marisa. Marisa, what's Kraken?
I love when other people say that because then I don't feel crazy that I say that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it still hasn't lost its luster of how many Kraken jokes can I get in there. As
I think it's hilarious. I don't think it'll ever get old.
No. Yeah, I mean, there's some things like for the Sharks, other fan bases are like, you guys skate out of a dumb shark head. I mean, certain other expansion teams have gone on and copied that. I'm really glad that Seattle didn't do that. But I mean, every team has
they have a whole
quirks.
thing now where a tentacle comes out of the ice. So it's not the same, but every team seems to have their thing now.
I don't know. Whatever. Vegas could do whatever they want with their pregame production, and I'm just gonna be like, I don't care. Don't impress. The whole Vegas thing and Vegas and Sharks thing it's already a very long and history fringe. But we're not here to talk about Vegas. We've spent way too much time hating Vegas, but we want to kind of talk about the Kraken today and like what their team is about. It's having an expansion team that coming in has actually felt like an expansion team has kind of gone through those growing pains. So, I mean, with the Kraken, what do you think has been the biggest kind of thing with them this year? As an expansion team in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a little disappointing so far. It's lost 9 in a row. They had a 6-game losing streak earlier in the year. Goaltending hasn't been what they expected it to be. Philipp Grubauer, who was a Vezina finalist last year, has been in the bottom of almost every goaltending category this year. He played pretty well their most recent game against Chicago. Maybe he's coming out of a bit. Chris Drieger played pretty well before he went into COVID protocol as well. So that's been a big issue for them. Their offense as well, when they have gotten to goaltending, it seems like the scoring hasn't been there. Brandon Tanev's out for the year. Schwartz has been hurt, and he leads the team in assists. Morgan Geekie's been out, and he's a guy they really expected some offense from. So kind of some bad luck there as well, but also it's an expansion team. They're still figuring out what they have. They've looked pretty better lately. Even the loss against St. Louis last week, they played pretty well. They look good against Chicago. They weren't terrible against the Kings either. So maybe they can kind of come out of this a little bit. They're obviously pretty far out of the playoff spot at this point. So I think the focus for them is just kind of to establish an identity a little bit.
Yeah, and it seemed like that identity, at least with the way they kind of went to the expansion draft and the way they were trying to build the team, was sick defense, good goaltending, and we're going to scratch out enough offense. And I mean, the Sharks have been kind of very similar game plan as well, but I mean, they've gotten a little bit more offense. But the goaltending seems to be the biggest issue with the Kraken, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the defense has some growing pains too, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. They've had a bunch of guys in and out of the lineup with COVID protocol. It seemed like when Omicron kind of hit the whole NHL, it was really the Kraken defense between Alexiak, Giordano, Susie, Larson. Like they all went out at some point, done more recently. So they've been kind of putting it together a little bit. Will Borgen all of a sudden is a presence on defense. He didn't play the first 21 games of the season. Hayden Fleury hasn't played 7 games in a row now. So they've been kind of just getting that together a little bit. But I think for the most part, the defense has been pretty good. It's been kind of a matter of every single time they do make a mistake, it's burnt in. Like they don't have much margin forever because when they do make a mistake, Grubauer hasn't been making the save and they don't have the offense to bounce back from it. So it's kind of just been a mix of things.
Yeah, I mean, for Sharks fans, it feels very similar to last year where, the defense was terrible. And then if they made a mistake. Martin Jones wasn't bailing them out. And, it's crazy what happens when you have competent to, average goaltending where like that can just make all the difference in the world. Do you think with Grubauer, is it where, just he's not being surrounded by the sweet talent that he had at Colorado, or is it, a little bit of just kind of a new situation or just the growing pains in front of him? What do you think it is?
Well, historically, when he's gotten into a starter's role, whether it was Washington or Colorado, it's always taken him a little bit of time to get going. This seems like a case where it was similar, but they were really relying on him. If you look at like their salary cap, they haven't spent a ton of money. They put it into goaltending. They believe get above league average goaltending and the rest will kind of work out. Instead, Grubauer has been well below league average. If they had league average goaltending, they're probably still not a playoff team, but it's a different conversation we're having at the same time. I don't think that this is going to be Grubauer over the course of his contract. I think he's going to rebound. He's a good goalie. It's a weird time in hockey right now between COVID and expansion team, playing for a new team, getting everything together. It just kind of seems like one of those things where he wasn't playing well and it's just taken a long time to get going. I really think the defense in front of him has been fine. It's been a case of poorly timed goals. When the defense has had its breakdowns, it's been at bad times. But for the most part, a lot of the goals given up by Grubauer, you look at all the metrics and whatever, it hasn't been good. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat that. Like, you're not last in the league for like by accident.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone well. But I do think that he's a good goalie, and at the end of the day, it's going to be fine. It's just a little too late this season.
Yeah, and Grubauer seems to have had the Sharks numbers. I think I was looking up some stats today. In 13 games against the Sharks throughout his career, he has 5 shutouts. Majority of those came with the Avalanche, but like, just sometimes those guys just have certain teams' numbers, and that's the one thing that kind of does worry about me tonight's game. Whereas like the Sharks could we've seen them play really well against like Pittsburgh and the Rangers and like outplayed both those teams, but then like they just get goalied. Timo Meier scoring 5 goals kind of saved the day against the Kings, but that's what worries me about Grubauer, is just he seems to have the Sharks number. And I'm petrified that he's just going to be like stand on his head and have like 50 saves tonight.
Well, he's kind of been pulling out of it a little bit too. His game against Chicago, that's the sharpest he's looked all year, I feel like. He made the big save when they needed it. He was good in a shootout, and that's somewhere the Kraken had never won a shootout before, and a lot of that's been on their scoring, but he got to 2 goals in a shootout, and Grubauer did what he had to do. He stopped Taves and Kane. And he played really well in that game. It's the most locked in I've seen him all year. So I feel like if you get some consistency, that's something that's burned Drieger a little bit. He had 2 really good games against Buffalo and Florida back in late November, and then he got hurt. And then he played 2 pretty good games between LA and St. Louis, and then he went into COVID protocol. So he's had no luck. So now Grubauer finding maybe he's getting into a rhythm. Maybe he can kind of start to play a little bit better here, but they need to get it consistently and hope that he can just kind of keep it going for a while.
Yeah, we'll talk about the defense and the forwards here in just a second. But first, we need to talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline.ag. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and a new mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So yeah, the Kraken's offense has definitely been a bit of a struggle. I think they are pretty much last, right, or below the bottom for like goals for. Where are they at? I think right now, or they're 10th, but I mean, that's some teams have games that played, but then, their goals allowed, I think they're 2nd in the league with goals allowed. So that big disparity in offense. Is it because their offense? I mean, we talked about, we thought at least with their expansion draft where, it didn't seem like they were going to have a ton of offense. And is it also that compounded with just guys not being there that they were counting on? Has that kind of been the big issue with their offense?
Yeah, I don't think they expected like an offensive juggernaut or anything like that. I think they were hoping for a bunch of career years from guys, and like certainly they've gotten that out of Jared McCann. He's been a real positive. But then other things like Colin Blackwell, who they really expected to have a big performance, he was out for the start of the year, and then he had a pretty severe case of COVID as well and is coming back. Ryan Donato, who's come in. I think he's done a pretty good job. So they have some guys.
Ryan Donato.
He scored the shootout winner and another goal the other day against.
Between him and Donskoy, they have some of the filthiest hands you will see in the shootout, where it's just every time.
Yeah, those are the two guys who won it in the shootout. But the problem with Donskoy is he doesn't have a regular goal all year, and that's something where you're like, that's the guy they really expected to contribute. And he is offensively. He's tied for the team lead in assists. You look at him play; he's playing pretty well. He's had a few shots hit some posts. He's had some bad luck, but he hasn't been bad or anything. But you can't get 0 goals out of him. And then Schwartz being out, Tanev being out, that's hurt them. I think they expected a little bit more out of Geekie and a few other guys as well. Wenberg hasn't really been overly productive. Yanni Gord has been good, but it's been a bit of a struggle finding some consistency between line mates and all of that. So I don't think it's overly surprising they haven't scored that much. But at the same time, building for the future, I mean, Matty Beniers is going to come in at some point. Whatever high draft pick they get this year is going to come in at some point. They have to build organizationally. They don't have the depth to sustain. Losing a guy like Tanev, he's a bottom 6 forward, even if he's playing pretty well. They really just don't have the depth to make up for that. And that's burnt them a lot. And again, I don't think it's overly a surprise. A lot of people expected their offense to struggle. And again, there have been some positives like McCann. That's a guy they can build around. Donato, maybe there's a future. Maybe he finally found a sticking point somewhere. But yeah, I mean, the Kraken aren't a team that's going to go up and score 4+ goals every night. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it seems too like they're not a team that's like a high volume shooting team. I think, they're pretty low in the actual like shot attempts but they do a good job keeping other teams from shooting as well, especially. So tonight's matchup might be one of those matchups where it's like, 25 shots each, just because
it's a fancy way of saying they're kind of boring.
Yes, they're both boring teams. That's fine. Hey, I mean, you never know with Timo. He might do something insane. So, but at least like the Kraken's power play is not too shabby, at least compared to like the Sharks. I think they're 19th in the league right now at 18.6. What's making their power play click comparably to the Sharks?
Well, early in the year, the power play was really bad. They couldn't figure anything out. And then a few things have clicked more recently. Marcus Johansson's been a real spark plug on a power play. They finally got a net front presence. They've really struggled to develop net front presence all year. They were the last team in the league to score a goal that was deflected in by one of their own players. So they really weren't generating that. Donato's done a good job there. But specifically, Johansson's really created a spark. McCann as well, the way they load him up on the power play, he's really generated a lot there. So they have some guys, and the thing about the Kraken too, their offense does a lot better when they have a chance to set up in their own zone. Their transition offense struggles a little bit. They dump and chase. They're not really able to generate much when they get beyond their own blue line in their own transition game. So their power play is where their offensive system shines at its most, because they actually get a chance to set up a lot more. So I think recently the power play has actually been pretty good. Like I said, I think Johansson, once he came back from his COVID protocol specifically, he's been really fantastic there. And I think it's really generated a lot.
Yeah. And in contrast, the Sharks power play, I mean, with the exception of their Timo's 2 goals on Monday, has been abysmal. Shang Peng, who, I think he put out a stat where from December 11th through, what was that? The January 15th or 16th, the Sharks had given up 3 shorthanded goals and scored 2 power play goals at that time. The power plays has been a real struggle for the Sharks. And I mean, so much so that they've gone back to the Carlson Burns power play. And I mean, it looked better against the Kings, but I'm still a little worrisome. Again, where they were playing the Kings, and the Kings power play penalty kills been really bad. So I'm still a little apprehensive if the power play can get anything done against the Kraken, just because it's been so bad for like a month straight now. So, kind of big thoughts. I mean, a lot of people expected the Kraken, or there was a lot of people, I'll be fair, expected the Kraken to make the playoffs, and they just haven't lived up to those expectations. I don't know if they were like, now Vegas set the bar so high, but it seems like they're going to try to build this thing the right way. Do you think this team can maybe compete in a couple of years when they start to add some more pieces? Matty Beniers, who I really liked, I think, I had him as my favorite prospect going into the draft until the very end, and where I put Eklund ahead. But like, I really liked Matty Beniers, and then they add, a guy maybe like a Logan Cooley, or if they get the Shane Wright pick or something like that. Do you think that they can be able to compete here in a couple of years?
Yeah, this offseason will be interesting for them because they have a ton of cap space. They always talk about
Yeah.
weaponizing that cap space. They're going to lose some guys too, like whether it be the trade deadline or in free agency. Mark Giordano, Kelly Yarncroke, Marcus Johansson, they're all UFAs. They could either trade at the deadline or lose in free agency. I don't know if any of those guys would be here long term. But then they have some choices to make. Like McCann's going to be a restricted free agent. So is Donato. They're going to want to pay those guys, specifically McCann, to keep them around. They have a choice to make on Hayden Fleury. He hasn't played very much. Are they going to give him a chance? Like, what's the deal there? So they have some decisions to make. And then whether it be free agency, whether it be trades, they have an opportunity to build almost unlike any other team. They have more cap space than anyone. I know they want to save some of that for next offseason when some real stars are free agents and they have an opportunity to spend. Between Beniers coming in, whatever draft pick they get, McCann, if he keeps elevating his game, if Donato really clicks here, they have an opportunity if they want to go out and spend, if they want to go out and build a competitor. And I think they're really motivated to do that early on and keep this fan base engaged. I think that it would be in their best interest, and they probably will go out and make some moves in the offseason.
How has the Seattle fan base been? Because there has been history of Seattle being supportive of hockey teams, but how have they kind of embraced the Kraken in Seattle?
Yeah, it's been really cool. People have been really into it. People are still learning the game a little bit, but now midway through the year, you see a lot of people really invested. You see people who care about the team, who are frustrated by the losses, but at the same time are just really happy that a team is here and that they get to watch NHL hockey every night. So the atmospheric Climate Pledge is really good. As having been to every arena in the league now, Climate Pledge, it's up there with one of the better ones in the league as far as just atmosphere and fan base and excitement. So it's been really cool to see Seattle develop into a hockey town in real time.
Yeah, that arena looks pretty sweet because it's underground, isn't it? Like you kind of walk in and you're like, most arenas you like have to kind of climb the stairs and stuff, but like you walk in and you're at the top of the arena from the street level and it's like underground, isn't it?
Yeah, you walk in the upper concourse. I've never seen an arena like that, so it's pretty cool. It's definitely unique.
That's awesome. I know my wife and I and Kyle are trying to figure out because the last game of the regular season is San Jose at Seattle. So we're trying to figure out if we can make it a trip. But yeah, it's on my to-do list of trying to make it up there. So let's get into tonight's game. So Sharks are coming off a couple days rest. I think the Kraken also haven't played since Monday. What do you expect for this team? Or what do you expect for this game tonight, especially for two teams who are kind of low event hockey?
Yeah, it's the first game of a back-to-back for the Kraken, 3 games in 4 days in the middle of a long homestand. They're coming off a win. That doesn't happen every day. So last time they won a road game, and after a long losing streak, they kind of went on a little bit of a run. So they seem like a team that really motivated by just kind of that positive energy. Like the frustration you could see was getting to them. McCann said enough is enough during the road trip. They were kind of at a loss for answers at one point there too, but they're mostly healthy. Their only guys in COVID protocol right now are Drieger and one of their minor league goalies, Antoine Bibeau. So they, you would think that is kind of an opportunity for them to get on a roll at home a little bit before they have an extended East Coast trip and then the All-Star break. This found out a February schedule yesterday. So they have a lot of home games coming up. They have an opportunity to win some games. I would fully expect the Kraken to come out kind of playing hot. That's what happened last time. They broke their losing streak against Washington and they came out and played one of their best games I've ever seen them play against Carolina. And that's a really good team. So I expect the Kraken to come out and play pretty well. I expect Grubauer to maybe kind of build off of that game. He's been looking for a game like that all year that he can really just develop from. So maybe the Kraken kind of can start something here.
Who do you think is the player, or actually before we get to that, Morgan Geekie, I saw he was practicing he's wearing a no contact jersey. You think he'll be available for the game tonight?
Yeah, not sure. Hackstall didn't tell us much. Usually when they have a guy on a line in practice, that indicates they intend for them to play. That's kind of been the way it's gone, but they're not always overly open about timelines. We've had them tell us Colin Blackwell was day-to-day for 4 weeks in a row. So
They come from the Sharks teal curtain where oh yeah, he was fine. Oh yeah, Joe Thornton day to day comes out, he has a pick line, and we don't see him for a month. Like it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so that he practiced on a line, I would expect him to be back probably at some point in this 3 and 4 stretch. I don't know if he will be in this game specifically, especially because they'd have to make another move. They just got Carson Kuhlman and they put Geekie on IR to make room. They'd probably send Alexander True back to taxi squad or AHL to make room at some point, I would expect. But I don't know if Geekie would be available because they wouldn't tell us.
I did enjoy last time when they ran out the all Sharks line of True, Donskoy, and Donato. Alex True, friend of the show. But so who's going to be the player to watch for the Kraken tonight?
For me in general, like watching Jared McCann really blossom this year has been really fun because he's a guy who could see his career trends every year getting better, and he really just needed a chance, and he sees the opportunity. He's one of the guys here that I would say is making the most of his opportunity in Seattle. And it's been genuinely fun to see his offense develop, his confidence really just start to grow from preseason till now. He's been really good on the power play. He's been very consistent, kind of everything they've thrown at him between moving him from center to wing, back to center. So he's kind of the guy that every night I look forward to watching.
All right. 2 things before we get you out of here. One, I have to get on you a little bit. About a month ago, you had an article like with your predictions, and you predicted that the Sharks fans would be really sad with the haul that they get from Tomas Hertl. Why are you trying to hurt us personally?
Because I hate every NHL fan base.
Okay, that's good. At least it's hated equally. So, but no, we love Tomas Hertl. You could ask me any hour to hour, day to day, you could ask me if they should trade him or not, and I could give you a different answer because I can't decide because it's gonna be brutal if they have to trade him. And number 2, the Kraken. This probably should have been the top thing we talked about. The Kraken got a dog, Davy Jones. How awesome! Like the Sharks had Finn. I got to meet Finn pre-COVID. Those times when you could actually go out and talk to people, meet people. But how cool was it meeting Davy Jones?
Davy Jones is my favorite person I've ever met in the world. He's incredible. He's wonderful. The most fun I have had at the rink, and I love going to the rink. So it was great. It was really exciting, and he's going to be around a lot for a while, and I think that's awesome.
So yeah, he's not going to be like, because most of them go, to be like kind of the helper dog. He's going to be a therapy dog, right?
Yeah, so he's training to be, or he's about to start training. He's only 4 months old, so they're a little bit away, but he's going to be a therapy dog, and he was adopted by one of the people who work on the app development team for the Kraken. So he's around all the time, and the players and Hackstall already love him.
That's awesome. Marisa, you've came and you've done it all. Where can the people find you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Marisa_Ingemi and read the Seattle Times. I have Kraken stuff pretty much every day.
Awesome. Marisa, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. We will be back tomorrow with a recap of the Kraken game. I'm going to say the Sharks win 4-2. That's my official prediction. And give me a Logan Couture goal. I don't know why. I just feel like Couture's overdue. Actually, and a Noah Gregor. I'm going to keep saying Noah Gregor scores until he actually does. But you can also subscribe to us on YouTube in our march to 1,000 subscribers. We are slowly getting there, and Kyle and I both want to be paid more money for our work, so please subscribe there. You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, wherever you listen to us right now. Continue to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at myfryhole, and we will be back tomorrow. Thank you for making us your first listen. Go check out Locked On Bets. Go make some money.